Howdy, howdy, and welcome to My Bloody Judy with your final faguettes, myself, Zachary Patton Garcia.
And Ian Carlos Crawford. And today, our opening kills are the hosts of Fear Queers.
Hello, I'm Chase.
I am Beyza.
Yeah.
Hi.
Fellow horror podcast, right?
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about Fear Queers. What was your concept?
what is-
How'd you guys decide
How
to
do we
do it?
how do we start?
Okay.
Well, I guess we can start sitting in like a crappy kiddie pool in my backyard on a hot summer day. Beyza and I were just talking and we were geeking about, I don't know what we were talking, some probably horror movie. And then we just kind of looked at each other. We're like, should we just like do this on microphones now? That's kind of the humble beginnings of Fear Queers. But yeah, we're basically just a horror podcast that talks about, I don't know, just shares all of our unqualified but very gay opinions on horror.
There you go. There you go.
That was
that.
perfect.
We
That
just-
was truly perfect.
yeah, it was similar thing with us, but we weren't sitting in a kiddie pool in Ian's backyard. We were over Zoom during the 2020,
Oh, totally.
It's just how all podcasts are born lately,
For sure.
But yeah, today we're going to be covering childhood terror, childhood horror, like
Childhood. I keep wanting to say childhood
I know,
trauma. Like
I know,
Cordelia
me
Chase.
too. And I'm like,
I think
don't
we should
know
call
if
it
can
that.
we? That can be the episode title. Is what's your childhood?
one
No,
of the
I don't
things.
see why not. I mean, but it did all lead us here, so it's like not necessarily negative trauma.
There
And
you
I
go.
will also say that with my pick today, there is a very specific trauma that it did cause for a couple years.
So we're gonna get deep into it,
That's
guys.
perfect.
Okay, we're going down the Barbara Walters Avenue. I just want to know what first got y'all roped into horror. Like, what age? Do you remember what it was? What specific moment? What specific project? Just like, how did you get sucked into the world of horror?
I'll just say, I think watching all like this sort of like scary kid stuff was definitely like laid the groundwork. But then it wasn't until high school when I was like sitting around with all my friends and we watched The Strangers. And at the time that was like the movie and it was really horrifying. And I mean, I literally, anytime anyone knocks on a door, I want to run away. So
Flinch.
that for me was definitely like but I remember like after I watched it, I was like, I did that. I watched that scary movie. I'm a little badass. And I was like, I like this feeling. And I was like, it was such a fun way to bond with my friends. And I think that was sort of like the adult activation of my love for horror outside of that childhood foundation of fun, campy Scooby-Doo things.
I love that.
Yeah. I would say kind of the same trajectory of like it began as a child and watching shows like Goosebumps or You're Afraid of the Dark, Scooby-Doo, those kinds of shows that then kind of led into, that gateway horror leading into the more socially acceptable versions of horror that we like, Scream and these movies that we love today. But I think my like moment where I was like, oh, horror is like a genre that I connect with deeply was seeing Jennifer's Body in 2009. And just like that was just my horror awakening, but also my gay awakening. And I owe everything to Megan Fox. So that's
so perfect.
that's I'm wearing my shirt today.
And it's such a fun one too to kind of like get in there with. Should we do ours, Ian? I mean, we've done
I would
it
love to
before.
hear
I would
y'all's if
love
you
to.
haven't.
Yes,
Go ahead,
please.
Ian. Yeah.
Yeah. As a kid, I was scared of everything. And like even now as an adult, my mom will be like, it's weird that you like horror movies because you were scared of everything. And I'm like, I know, I don't know what happened. But really, I think I credit Scream, but also I think Buffy had a little bit to do with it because Buffy's so like horror infused, but like way horror light, right? Like it's not. My mom loved Buffy and she hates horror, but like I think like both of those things like made me realize, oh, horror isn't just like scary and people getting murdered. It can be like nuanced and have like cool characters. But it definitely was Scream. I remember we rented it and watched it in my neighbors that lived across the street in like the older sister's bedroom. Just she was like the older one, so she rented it. And I think their mom like had no idea what we were watching, and we just like rented it and watched it. And I remember being like scared, but like I mean, the way we all probably feel about horror now, where it's like, ooh, I'm a little scared, but like, I fucking love this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I felt both those things and not just the, ooh, I'm scared. And yeah, and then like I became plurally obsessed with Buffy, and I think both those things made me more like, I feel like even when I'm reading, I've become such a weird reader now. Like if there's not like some kind of murder happening or like something supernatural with like a demon, then like I get fucking bored.
The thrill's
like
not there.
Yeah, it's just like not there. And I'm not seeing like a badass woman fight for her life. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm Zachary.
I think the badass women is what really roped me in, right? I think from the earliest that I can remember, I think the horror classics were already in my memory. So I don't remember the first times I've watched them, They were just all collectively there. But I remember it was always the final girl that like really, I would play that. I would act it out, My dad would have to come into the bedroom and tell me, stop screaming, because I'm in the bedroom like screaming like, I don't know, Laurie Strode falling off, the stairs,
Yes.
But that really solidified it. So as long as I can remember, I was already into horror. And then when I was able to be more conscious of like certain things that I liked a chase scene, or I liked more when they were in the suburbs, or there was a staircase involved, and then I started putting those pieces together for myself. And The Strangers was actually a big one with me too, because I remember all of us going to the theater to see whatever was out at that time. It was like Beverly Hills Chihuahua or something like that. We all got tickets for it. It was whatever kids movie was out. And we went into The Strangers instead and came down, and it was terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And we would call each other every night because we lived in a location like that where the houses were kind of spread apart.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and we had like a little bit of
Nightmare.
wilderness. Yeah. And I always found a
Yeah,
lot of fun
I would not
going
recommend. I would not recommend rewatching The Strangers because it does not hold up at all.
Do you not
so
think?
Don't watch it again.
and it doesn't hold up in a bad way, or is it like what would you say?
It doesn't. I would say it doesn't hold up only because it's not as scary as we once thought it was. Generally, just like it. And I'm always scared of everything to this day. Just because I love horror does not mean I'm a scaredy cat. I am definitely a scaredy cat. And I found myself like, after watching it, not fearing for my life when I was going to sleep, like closing I didn't do any of the normal things that I do.
I do still think that like they are creepy. Like I do
think so
still.
too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think them as entities are creepy, but the story itself, like the pacing of it, didn't scare me as much as I thought it did. If that makes sense.
Is it like too slow for you?
Yeah,
it's slow. It's a little too slow for me.
I don't know. Like I like a true crime, and that feels very true crime to me. And so that always does get the hairs on my arms standing up. I'm glad that the next one that they did, they weren't trying to recreate that feel. That they kind of went for the more flamboyant approach to it. But I think it fits really well as its own thing.
I had never seen the sequel until Zach and I covered it over the summer, and I was definitely surprised at how good of a sequel it was. Like that lawn chase scene with the brother in the pool is so well shot. It's like better than it needed to be.
Wait, I've never seen a squeakquel, so I think I need to watch that tonight.
I think you should. I'm a little disappointed.
I think I need to watch that tonight. That sounds amazing.
Good.
Okay, good.
It is more like less scary, more just like thrilling, where you're like,
definitely. And I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was missing during my rewatch of the original. I think I was missing that, where I like definitely got that in the squeakquel.
When's the last time you showed the original to somebody? Because I still love showing it to people who have never seen it, because they will get scared.
Oh yeah.
With my partner, I don't think she's ever seen it, and we watched it. I don't remember. It must have been a few months ago, but she's never seen it, and she is not a horror fan.
Yeah.
But she kind of felt similarly as I did, and I was surprised. I thought she was going to be much scarier than I expected, but
I think Zach and I just tend to like a slow burn horror.
Yeah.
It's elevated.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's elevated horror if you haven't heard of it.
I love it. But what we're here today is to cover. Me and Ian have assigned everybody, has given everybody an assignment. Everybody has to come with one piece of childhood horror that just like imprinted on you, right? It doesn't have to be your favorite. It doesn't have to be the scariest, but something that imprinted on you and that you do bring up, like you'll bring up in conversation if you're talking about being scared as a kid. So we're going to spin this wheel. And Beyza, what'd you bring for us?
Well, this is interesting because I think I didn't tell Chase what I was saying or what I was talking about, because I wanted to surprise you. But I have a prop
Ooh, we love it.
Mine is the Scooby-Doo Project from 1999.
Did they release that? I've never seen that.
This is not.
Okay.
This is
I was gonna be shocked that you had like a
no. I fucking wish. No, they never released any kind of physical media at all. This is from someone on Instagram. But mine is the Scooby-Doo Project of 1999. And I will say that this is actually one of, along with like Goosebumps and these, I mean, obviously I was a huge Scooby-Doo kid. And this was one of the first pieces of media that I saw. I was 4 in 1999, by the way. So this was one of the first pieces of media that kind of messed with my psyche in a way that I was, if no one's seen it, it is one of the most like unhinged commercials specials that has ever existed. And it genuinely was a mix of the Blair Witch Project and Scooby-Doo. Like it was like the two things were just smushed together. And it was one of the scariest things I've ever seen because I thought it was real. And I think a lot of kids at the time did. But the general plot is that the Scooby Gang is on their way to, do what they do, solve mysteries. And they end up in the woods and leave the mystery machine behind and go camping in a tent. And obviously things go wrong, clearly. And there's just a lot of drama, y'all. I mean, it's just filled with drama. At one point, Daphne calls Velma like unfeminine. It like goes.
I love
off.
that. It's so funny because like, she just gets. I love the deadpan silence just before just they cut silence. Away.
It is like it scared me too because I had never seen the Scooby Gang again as a 4-year-old who was obsessed with Scooby-Doo, watched it every single day. I had never seen them fight before, and this special shows them fighting, like really like intense, brutal fighting. And this made me cry. It fully just made me cry.
That's real cute.
It didn't feel cute in the moment. It was
trauma.
It was trauma.
It's a trauma.
As Jamie Lee would say, trauma. And it really mirrored. And then obviously I saw Blair Witch probably 10 years later, when it was socially acceptable for me to watch that movie. And they pulled full scenes from the Blair Witch Project. I mean, it ends the same way that the Blair Witch Project ends, which is like ridiculous. I can't believe that this was like put on Cartoon Network, but because you hear so many stories of like specials, like Nickelodeon specials that made it onto the screen one time and immediately was taken off because parents were so pissed that they had shown this like crazy shit to kids. But Cartoon Network didn't give a shit.
I will say for the time, they did think kids could handle a little bit more than like
for sure
now, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, also, I do think they only played clips of it like later, not like late, but I think they would only play it starting at like 8 or 9.
I thought it was Adult Swim. Like I totally thought it was Adult Swim, and it wasn't quite Adult Swim. It was like I think it was like that.
The predecessor. Yeah, like.
Well, I think it was also that Cartoon Network vibe was very Adult Swim for kids because I mean, a lot of my friends when I was younger weren't allowed to watch Cartoon Network. Thankfully, my mom didn't care and let me, burn my brains out with Powerpuff Girls and all that shit. But Cartoon Network, I think, and along with Nickelodeon, were some of the, networks that really formed my like childhood horror obsession. I think those two, and Disney, just for like DComs and stuff like that, obviously, but they had some quality TV.
The people working on those at the time, late 90s, early 2000s, were they had some really good ideas, right? And like they did treat kids like, these are horrors in the world. You gotta, we're introducing them to the real world anyway. So
for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I think Scooby-Doo Project was like a marketing project. It wasn't just to go on TV as a special. It was for marketing this like huge marathon that was happening for Scooby-Doo on Halloween. And I mean, I think it was like 3 people who put the whole thing together, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's not really as common.
Yeah.
And especially just marketing on TV, marketing in general just doesn't kind of put, as much effort into the marketing of a like new entity or any kind of even a franchise the way that I feel like this did and the 90s really did.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it was really scary. I rewatched it last night just because I needed to be a little bit prepared, and I hadn't seen this since then. And they opened with a full like Blair Witch, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like these kids have been like slaughtered somewhere in the woods, and we have no idea where Scooby Doo is. I'm like, Scooby, where is Scooby?
Yeah, and they have like live action Scooby snacks. I'm like,
it's
that's
very
what Scooby snacks
Uncanny
look like?
Valley. The whole thing is
They're
so
gummies
Uncanny
to me.
Valley,
Okay.
and I think that just adds to that like unnerving. I mean, and also it's just so quiet, and like it's like watching Scooby Doo be so quiet and so Uncanny Valley is like watching such a weird like inversion of everything you know and trust as a kid, which is like the classic Scooby Doo.
Yes. Well, and I do feel like I have never experienced the acid trip, but I feel like this is what it would be.
This is
like
it.
I feel genuinely, I think like seeing just the Uncanny Valley of like they filmed like this cast and crew of like 3 or 4 people filmed all of these locations and then just drew the Scooby gang into them. Like
you can see like a knuckle every now and then like appear with I don't know whenever they're like staking down the tent.
Yeah. Well, and the inclusion of just like interviews with real people, like real life people, was it, and just the Scooby gang were the drawn characters, and we all just like as a society accepted that these kids are illustrated and just like not real.
I remember like wishing they would do other like more Scooby-Doo horror, like put them in other horror movies.
It's a Ghost Adventures thing. They could have done a whole Ghost Adventures
could have done a
series
whole thing.
in that same style. Would have been so nice. Like
they did. I don't think I've ever watched it, but they did make, because this was so successful, they made a like kind of a sequel it was called like Night of the Living Dew, I think. I have never seen it.
I'm looking this up.
Yeah, I've
clearly
never heard of that, but I love it.
It clearly wasn't as much of a bop as the the Scooby-Doo Project one, but it does exist. I haven't seen it yet, but honestly, at this point, I'd rather rewatch Scooby-Doo Project.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would live if they got Zach Bagans on board and they just went and shot.
I have I have a weird like allowance for Zach Bagans. He can do whatever.
Beyza and I talk about this.
It's not allowance. It's love. It's pure love.
It's love or it's lust. It's something. I don't know what
It's
it
all
is,
of
but
it.
like watching him as a kid, like, it's just like watching him back. We all
He
know.
took his shirt off in the first
We all
season.
know.
It hooked
Yeah,
me.
like,
Okay,
you got-
and I was
Yeah.
How
What
was I not
else?
going to be living?
I think somebody would call him. My brother would call him douche Bagans, and so that's all we heard around the house.
That's
but
good.
I loved him so much.
My
So
brother
he would
like,
be.
Go ahead.
No, what'd you say?
I was just saying, well, my brother would like impersonate him and scare the crap out of me as a kid because he'd be like, if there's any ghosts in here, and he would like lock me in my room. I'd be like, stop doing this. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing.
You have to pull up your picture of you as Zach Bagans a couple Halloweens ago.
Did you do that? Oh,
Y'all,
that's
Yeah,
I did it.
perfect.
please
I'm not
pull it
gonna
up.
lie. I
Bring
kinda,
it or
like,
send
did
it over for our promos, and we're going to use
I
it.
will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Ghost Adventures was
Yes.
another part of like my childhood trauma.
Oh, for sure.
Every year they would do like the long blocks of it, and those always terrified me.
Yep. The Bobby Mackey episode specifically as a kid.
When
that
they're
was
like, do you remember one? And I don't remember. I've not been able to find this episode, but they're in an asylum, which they're always in a damn asylum. But
They're out. Yeah.
there's one where they hear on the little voice recorder like, "Don't look up, I'll kill you," or something like that. Like he's sitting in a corner, and that scared the living shit out of me. And I carried that around for weeks, hearing it in my head, and too scared to look up.
Yep.
Well, I
100%.
haven't really watched a lot of Ghost Adventures just because in like deep quarantine, that's what Chase and I would do. Like just watch Ghost
old
Adventures,
episodes.
binge, and and yeah, it was just definitely a special part of quarantine.
Ian, did you ever
but-
watch those Ghost Adventure shows or Ghost Hunters or like there's a
I had
there's a
no
whole
idea what
bunch
you were
of them,
talking
right?
about.
It's like Grave Encounters,
Really?
right? Like that's what Grave Encounters is. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it yet. I'm waiting on needing to watch that one, but like basically the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
didn't
you would love it.
I had trouble with so I've told Zach this. I actually do like handheld camera like horror stuff, but it sometimes makes me motion sick.
That's fair.
Oh, for sure.
Fair.
Absolutely sure. Yeah.
Like the movie Wreck. I don't know if any of you saw that. Wait, no. Wait, Zach, we realized I'm using the wrong title, right? That's the original. The remake is something else.
Isn't it Quarantine?
Yes,
Yeah.
Quarantine. So like I do think that movie's like a pretty good found footage, whatever. But there's a scene when they're in a staircase and the guy is just turning back and forth on the staircase. And I got so nauseous I had to walk out. And my roommate that I was with, I like walked up and down the hallway in the theater and saw I had a missed call, called my friend back who had called me and was just like, oh, I'm just getting motion sick in the theater, so I'm calling you. And when I went back, he was like, you were really that scared you had to leave? I was like, no, I thought I was going to
Throw up.
I wouldn't believe it either. I'd be like, motion sickness. I get
Yeah, right. Okay, sure. No, I totally sometimes not so much like motion sick, but sometimes with like night vision shots, I get that same way. I don't know why, but
it's weird, right? Like it's just like you get very like, ugh, like
yeah.
Well, the Blair Witch Project was freaking like no stability. That whole thing is all over the place. It is really hard to watch. So I'm glad with the Scooby-Doo project that it's like very tight and nice, right?
Yes.
Like
And-
we're not
and
getting
into that.
And I think they really had to do that because of the illustration. I don't think it like would have worked.
Daphne's just like
Yeah, she just like has her ripped tights and she's just like freaking out. Yeah, I think that's why it complements it so perfectly. Like I couldn't think of a better movie to pair the Scooby-Doo franchise with.
It really worked, and it is really unhinged. I think I was reading a couple of reviews for it, and some people said, just watch this one instead of the original Blair Witch, and it works.
Honestly,
just the same.
yeah.
So,
Honestly, yeah. I wouldn't say no.
That was me and Beyza's review that you read.
there you go.
Yes.
There you go. But we'll spin the wheel again, and Ian, what do you got for us?
Freddy Krueger. He was my number one, like everything that I feel like I was scared of related back to Freddy Krueger. Like I feel like I told Zach this story beforehand, but there was a cousin visiting from Puerto Rico named Freddy, and I was scared to meet him as a kid because I was scared he would be Freddy Krueger.
Your cousin, Freddy.
I was
Cousin
just like,
Freddy.
I know who Freddy is. Like, and I remember my mom being like, he spells it I-E, not Y. And me being like, no, it's Freddy Krueger. I know it. And like, little me was just like terrified this man was going to show up at my grandma's house and be fucking Freddy Krueger. And he was just like this like older Puerto Rican dude, like.
I would have
it was
slipped
like-
it to him though, to like wear a Christmas sweater. Just my son's a little scared of you. Just come on in a Christmas sweater.
I'll pull out the video camera.
And like, I remember always thinking of like, in almost every one of them, not all of them, there's like that scene where his hand's coming out of a bed or something. And like, I would push down on my bed sometimes if I was getting real scared. I've always been a nervous wreck, clearly. And I would get like real anxious about it and then like have to touch my bed to make sure I didn't feel his like claw coming
That's
up or, like,
brave
hiding.
though, because
It
if
is
it's already
brave.
in my head, I was not gonna check for it. I was gonna like
Just
fetal
stand still and
position
wait.
as still as you can, right?
Yeah.
Yup.
That's why I'm the anxious final girl, Zach.
There you go. You're making it. You're making it. You're gonna check for stuff.
And like those movies just really, I feel like Freddy might have been like the first like horror movie monster I was like aware of as a child. Yeah, right. Because the first one was only what, like 1980. It wasn't like it was
pretty
after
early,
Halloween, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But so like all the sequels happened in the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like he was like very popular, current when I was like a child in the late 80s, early 90s. And like, he would do like talk show appearances and they had like a Nightmare on Elm Street TV show.
Yeah.
So like I would be able to turn my TV on and then suddenly see Freddy. He was like fucking everywhere and I was always scared.
Did you not like find some comfort in that series though, or was it like actually repelling for you? You
No, it
didn't
was-
watch the show. You weren't a Freddy
no.
head.
So the crazy thing is I would still watch this shit, even though I was terrified of it as a kid.
Right.
So like, I can remember, and this is so stupid. And like, I remember nothing from that show aside from like, because Freddy Krueger wasn't a character in that show. It was like horror anthologies, but he would do little bits between the like anthology bits. And I remember one of the bits, and they were always like supposed to be campy. They weren't supposed to be whatever, but I was a kid. And I remember one of the bits being like him hanging outside, like they were redoing that Twilight Zone thing, and it was someone being like, I think there's someone on the wing. And then you cut to outside and it's like Freddy Krueger sitting on the wing.
No.
But like his claw in the
No.
wing. And he's like laughing and there's all this like purple fog around him. And it was like very campy, but that scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah.
I was always afraid Freddy Krueger would like be on the wing of an airplane if I was on an airplane.
That's a valid fear. I mean, he's everywhere and anywhere all at once. So,
So
you
was
know,
that
that's
was that like what was so scary about Freddy for you? Was that just he was like constantly everywhere, or like what was it about Freddy that like really sent you over the edge?
It was that he could be anywhere. And
Yeah.
like,
anywhere.
you know, he could be in my bed somehow in the mattress with his
Mhm.
hand coming out, or he could be waiting in my closet to murder me, or like drip out of the ceiling or come out of a wall. Like,
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
those like visuals really terrified me. And there was a fact that like, you know, like Michael Myers scared me too, and so did Jason. But like, those are more monsters you're running away from,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
They're like,
that's a good point.
they're
It
like,
makes a whole lot of sense what you're saying, because I mean you do bring up Jason and Michael and all that, and they have their places, right?
They're like
But Freddy
centralized.
really is
Yeah.
everywhere,
Yeah.
you know, and that was
Yeah.
kind
Well-
of the point of Freddy, anyway, is that you fall asleep and
you can't escape. You're just fucked. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and he, you know, I would say like maybe the closest other example I can think of is Ghostface, but his personality is very like forthcoming and very like in your face in a way that, you know, you don't really have a chance to like even
And
understand because there's no silence, you know.
And Ghostface, at least we like know, is always a human, right?
Yeah.
Is always
Right.
a human and always like kind of like fumbles a little bit. Like is
Right.
always
He
going to
can't, like,
stumble,
he
fumble.
can't
Human
melt
error.
into my bed.
Right. Right.
Yes.
and even with all Freddy's dialogue, you know, it gets a little hokey sometimes, but he's pretty aggressive, you know, like
Yeah.
Yes.
calling everybody a bitch and stuff like that. Like it's assaulting a little bit.
Well, and the phone. I mean, that was literally just assault.
Terrifying.
Like that's the
Yeah.
definition of assault. Like
Yep.
that's ridiculous. I'd rather be murdered. Like at that time, truly.
You're like, no, just kill me. That's
no,
better.
please. Yeah.
We've moved away from landlines. We're okay now. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever scared of Freddy Krueger though. I think I got uncomfortable when he would speak, but I think other than that, I was never that scared. What about y'all?
I met him at Comic-Con when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. So I was kind of living from the beginning because he was presented at this like convention as like with my mom and dad, and they're like, go take a picture with him. And I was kind of like, work. I was like, I get the energy, I get the vibes. Like I loved the nails. I love it.
Yeah. Pretty camp. I mean,
Yeah.
I out of every, you know, spooky villain that exists, I do think he pulls the fits. Like he pulls the best outfits and like looks the best all the time, besides maybe Ghostface. But yeah, I was always horrified of him, mostly because I don't know what it's called, but you know when you like are scared of like circles, like a lot
Yeah.
of circles around each other.
I
What is
forget
that
what that is.
called?
Is that agoraphobia? A phobia? Or is that something
No,
else?
No,
Not
that's
that one.
Well,
but
yes, I
it's-
have that too. But
It's anaphobia.
not that.
It's definitely anaphobia. We just watched. So we're doing like a slow rewatch of Nightmare movies, right? And we just watched Nightmare 3, and because she's a heroin addict, right? And so there's that scene where she's got all the holes on her the sores
See,
on her arm, and
yeah.
that like
That is hard, and like, and Freddy has that aspect to him too. So that
Yeah.
that is always what scared me as a child, and it just felt very like, yeah, just not right, like something I should not be seeing, which is, I mean, successful in horror, but
he's
yeah.
got a
I
word.
Googled
He's
it.
got okay. Hold on, facts.
All right. Oh God, I'm gonna mess this up. Trypophobia.
Trypophobia. Yeah. Yes.
Mhm. That one.
Yes.
I'm glad we're all stumbling on. the
Well,
one.
I think
Yes.
a lot of people came out with that once those new iPhones were released. Everybody had it,
And that's fair.
I remember it
Yes.
also was like totally a thing during American Horror Stories branding of
Oh,
the,
yeah,
of the
the-
cult.
it was
season,
cult,
and
wasn't
they
it?
Had,
Yeah.
all the honeycomb, and everyone was like, "Nope,
It's
not
a
it."
lot.
There is something very disturbing about that imagery. Not just, I mean, if I wasn't already scared of it, I would think it's disturbing anyway. And I think, I don't
You
know,
might be
Freddy
a little
kinda did
biased,
that
though.
first. Maybe I'm a little biased, but Freddy did it first.
When we
Especially-
watched 3,
yeah.
Ian, did any of it unsettle you?
I'm trying to think if any of it did. I still find the like Taryn being murdered. Like I knew that it happened, but I still find that to be like, it's a bummer death, but also a bummer
Mhm.
because it's like, oh, then she just died. Like, it's not like it's a character anyone
Yeah.
particularly cares about. So it's like
Yeah.
her and like even like the wheelchair bound kid who like turns into a wizard and then gets killed. It's like we're kind of just like, well, they're gone. Like,
Yeah.
but their death seemed like particularly cruel. And I do hate a cruel death in horror.
Yeah.
And even Zach, you were like, wait, she's dead now? Like, because they could have had, like, you know, it's a horror movie. You can easily decide this stab will not kill someone or this stab will kill
Exactly.
someone.
Right.
I'm curious how y'all feel about 2. And have you talked about it yet?
We have not, no, because I think we're gonna.
Are you
do
going
a full
to
rewatch on it because I remember it, right, and I remember it in my psyche, but I need to go back with like an adult analytical eye to like look at it because right now it's just. In my mind, Meryl Streep's in it, and I know that's not her, the main girl, but like it's her face in my head. So there's a lot of corrections that need to be made from child brain to adult brain.
That one was probably, aside from the first, the one I have had revisited the most in my revisited the most recently. Because when I worked at Geeks Out, we did FlameCon, and I had to I helped Mark Patton get around. I walked down the steps in the back of his documentary. I've had like 3 friends be like,
it's a great documentary.
That's
you
everything.
walked down the staircase in this documentary. I'm like, oh, cool. I think I screen recorded it and sent it to you, didn't I, Zach?
I think so. I've seen it.
Because it's like he's walking by and I'm just behind him. It's not, I don't do anything.
He's just like strolling down the
Just
stairs.
very prominently behind
I
him.
love that. He seems like such a sweet person.
Yeah. And like, you know, that I think about, it is weirdly very gay. Like, I don't understand how it just is. And I don't understand and like Zach knows this about me. I'm very like, I don't like to give things credit. Like, hate when the internet gives things credit for being queer that aren't. But like, this is very
gay.
queer. And
it's
like,
just gay. Yeah.
I buy that it's incidental because sure, the director like hated Mark Patton because he made the movie gay, but like, it's not just him. It's like the people getting like the coach getting stripped down naked in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they do such a good job of talking about that in the documentary. That's why I really appreciate. I mean, to be honest, I think I like the documentary more than I like the movie itself. But I just love. I mean, I've watched that like a bunch of times, and it makes me cry every time because of how horribly he was treated. And yeah, but also how he, you know, still made the most out of nothing.
Yeah.
And like he knew what was happening and everybody knew what was happening. But as long as this person, that person, the other were saying, no, that's not what you're seeing, then, you know.
Especially in the 80s.
Yeah, you could just deny it. And everybody just went along with that deniability, even though it like was very clear, you know. That documentary is really good. It's a long ass documentary, but it's good.
It is.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to Chase. What do you got for us?
I got Don't Look Under the Bed. The DCOM that was famously taken off the air because it was way too scary and hasn't become available until like, you know, Disney Plus and streaming. I have not. I rewatched like a YouTuber sort of rewatch it. I didn't watch the whole thing cover to cover, but it unlocked so many memories and so much.
Did you watch the one that I sent you?
Yeah. Then yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I have to say, like, the main like trauma that this movie left me with as a kid is for years I would jump onto my bed and off of my bed.
I still do
because
I
was
still
so
sometimes
worried.
do.
Literally, I was like, because like there's a shot of the boogeyman just grabbing that kid's ankle, and it is so,
and it's a clawed hand,
and
well,
like,
and he's hot. Like, why? Like, why did you have to make him hot at the same time?
and like he has to be like this like hot ass like Shakespearean almost like theater actor.
Yeah.
Like he's like the drama of everything. But yeah, so it was also just the fact that like the boogeyman is like that line at the end where she's like, actually it's boogie person, because she's like the girl imaginary friend. Like it's so, oh my god, that movie is everything. But I don't know, I think watching that as a kid, like rewatching parts of it, I realized what was so scary about it was, one, sort of the suspense of the boogeyman himself, because they don't show him until like the second half of the movie. Like you really just get like shots of his like really scary hands and his like you hear his laugh and things like that. So it just like really that part really builds. But just in this whole idea of like no one believing, this is like the first time as a kid I watched a movie where like no one believes the person going through the thing, which has like always been horrifying to me. And then on top of that, like the idea of like people, like either people can forget you and you'll just become like this like creepy little boogeyman, or like you forget someone and they become a boogeyman. It just added like the social anxiety was really like
they had
messages into my brain. Yeah.
And like just like childhood leukemia, like
okay, the cancer talk is like
I was
really,
shocked
like, really
when they brought that up. I didn't even remember that.
Yeah, no, the movie really accelerates. Like it goes like from like kind of like fun pranks of like a pool full of Jello straight to like talk about childhood cancer, and then like Francis's little brother getting dragged to the side of a cliff to get thrown over. Like it's like it just really goes from 0 to 100. So yeah, and also like I grew up with like a lot of siblings, in my opinion, 3. So
that's a lot.
There's 4 of us. It was enough to be worried about the sibling
basically cheaper by the dozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely my like main horror thing as a kid, where it just really hit hard.
And I think it did a really good job, or a really like freaky job of building lore too. Like you had to cover your face, and like his imaginary friend would cover his face so that the boogeyman wouldn't see him. Or like that was scary. I remember that being really scary.
And like witnessing, what's his name? Larry.
Yes.
Larry.
Also played Larry in Even Stevens.
Even Stevens, which is interesting.
Synergy.
Okay. The multiverse is wide. But are watching him turn evil. Like you can see it manifesting in him, like physically, but also like internally. And I think that was like really like smart in terms of storytelling for children. To like show his progression of evil through how he looked. I don't think that's always appropriate now, but it left you scared.
Yeah, you literally just like watch his like nails get longer, like his eyes start going.
Well, those are kind of a serve. I kind of like that.
Of course, they're the serve. But then and then he'll just like snap at it. Like you love him. He's like so fun and goofy, and watching someone like just like go from that to just like snapping and getting like really angry. It's just like oh my god, it was very.
I thought
like
he was scarier than the other boogeyman we were supposed to be scared of.
Yeah,
it was the purple eyes that really did it for me. I think. Like that
and
was
the teeth,
just
like teeth or something.
It was a lot. It was a lot. But what did Nickelodeon have? Because did Nickelodeon have horror too? What was theirs?
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Are You Afraid of the
that
Dark?
was
That's
the
right.
big-
Okay.
that was the main.
That was the big.
That carried the channel, didn't it? Okay, because I know that Disney had a lot, and Disney did a fantastic job with it. Did y'all ever watch So Weird? Any of y'all?
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
So Weird was
absolutely
fucking scary.
It was scary. And I think Nickelodeon shined more in Halloween episodes of their shows. Like I was just talking to Beyza about this recently, like the Halloween episode of Hey Arnold with like the ghost on the train.
Yeah.
Out of my no, like I still get so nervous when I see him or hear him. So that episode is very scary. But
Is that the same episode where they're telling different stories? Is that the one with the bride with the axe, or no?
No, but that is
that's a different good one.
Okay.
Very good one. Well, they also had Real Monsters on Nickelodeon, which is. But again, I think Nickelodeon leaned into, I think maybe even besides Goosebumps, though, because Goosebumps, there were horrifying moments. But I think Nickelodeon was successful in that it was able to kind of lean into like the more Halloween side of horror, maybe, rather than like the horror.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and
absolutely.
I meant to bring this up talking about Freddy Krueger. There's an old show on Nickelodeon called Hey Dude. And they did a Freddy Krueger like episode where the janitor. Oh, have you seen it, Beyza?
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger,
and that shit terrified me. It was like, I forget the janitor's name, but it was like he dressed like Freddy Krueger. And I remember like seeing the scene where the kid's in bed and he sees the janitor like plunge in the toilet, but it's all in a shadow. And he looks like Freddy Krueger. And being just like so terrified, even though we knew it was just a janitor. Like, it like terrified me, but it went back to Freddy Krueger.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you both picked these like characters that weren't allowing you to like sleep, like Freddy and like Don't Look Under the Bed are very, which is really weird. I wonder why I think we just like want to sleep and are scared
They're
that we
vulnerable
just never
again.
sleep.
You
We're
have
tired.
to
Yeah,
sleep.
safe
Everybody
place.
You have
has
to.
to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Well, because it like takes away part of your humanity to like
Yeah.
not be able to sleep. Like I
And
need
your
my full 9
survival.
hours.
Yeah.
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 I definitely, yeah. And when you're talking about like feeling your bed, I was like, I just wanted to shout because I get it. I was like jumping to and from my bed. Like it's something about just making sure it's like either making sure it's a safe space or just like doing what you have to do to prevent anything bad from happening.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I even told my partner this, but our bed is it doesn't have anything under it. Like it's wood. It has like wood slots all around it. And I wanted that purposefully because I'm tired of having beds with space under it.
Yeah,
Isn't
it's a
that so
lot.
weird?
No, it's a
Ew,
lot.
That's
I
so
get it.
annoying.
I don't know if
Okay.
beds with space under it does anything for me anymore, but corners still get me. Corners
Oh.
and mirrors. If I'm
Mirrors.
anywhere by myself, I just can't look into a mirror and I have to like go past it really quickly. I think those are the
Yeah.
two things from childhood that kind of carried along with me. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's anything that's out of place that shouldn't be there, right? Like if
Yeah.
Yeah.
you walked into your living room and somebody was standing there that you didn't know, like that would
Oh
be
my God.
terrifying, you know?
Yep.
Truly a
And,
nightmare.
Anytime I wash my face and like sometimes I'll be washing my face and I'm like,
Yep.
okay, we're
You
about
can
to
do
dry
it.
off. Yeah, like you gotta like I have to like
You
psych
gotta hype
myself
yourself
into,
up.
like,
You'll be fine. You'll be
yes.
okay.
yes.
I'm really bad with all of that because I always see things in the corner. I have glasses. Obviously, I can't see very well, but I always see something in the corner of my eye without fail every single time, every day.
Yeah.
So it's a hard way to live, y'all.
I would recommend getting a dog because ever since I got a dog, now whenever I get
I have
scared,
2 cats. That's enough.
it's just nice because I know if she's not freaking out and barking, nothing to worry about.
But
Nothing
that
to
is
worry
the scary part is because they'll bark at nothing. They'll
Yeah,
bark. They
sometimes
will
No,
bark
it's
at the
true.
corner.
And she does this thing like late at night where she'll just like I'll like be in the kitchen and just turn around and she's just like standing at the end of the hallway in the dark. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like very unnerving.
I do like we have a French bulldog and he's about, I don't know, 20-ish pounds, but I still make him go first if it's nighttime. just in case. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
no,
a
you-
nice little sacrifice for whoever.
Sacrifice.
I don't know. I think with childhood horror, really visuals have to lead the way, right? Because you can't expect a child to automatically like pick up on a message, right? Like that kind of has
And
to sit with them.
themes.
Yeah, it has to
Yeah,
sit
like
with them a little
general.
bit more.
More like in your face. Stuff.
Yeah. So when
Well,
you,
that's
what was that?
no. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, just I was going to continue on visuals, but what were you saying?
No, I think you're so right. And that's why I still love so much childhood horror and still watch it is because in a lot of ways it can be smarter than a lot of things that, us as adults are consuming today because you have these adults having to like reach back into their psyche and think
Right.
about what scared them as kids. And I think that's a really like, I don't know, that's just such a cool thing to be able to do. I wish
Yeah.
I could do something like that.
I think I would love to like make horror for children. I think it's
It'd
a
be
harder
so
landscape to do
It'd
that
be
now.
so fun.
You could, like sell that to a
Yeah.
network would be really hard, right? But
Yeah.
because they're not allowing like anything. Because
Well,
yeah,
but like weirdly, Stranger Things, I feel like is pretty intense for something that
Okay.
is.
I agree. And it also, by the way, serves some don't look under the bed energy because like when they have to go to the upside down to get the little brother and then
Yeah.
like it's like a whole thing. But yeah, no, I agree. Stranger Things is definitely like pretty intense and not only intense, just like in like its themes and like actual plot, but like also just especially season 1, those kids are so young
yeah,
that it's like watching what they go through at that age is I think one of the things that's would be most terrifying to watch as a kid because they are
Yeah.
so young.
Mhm. Well, and I think they're doing something smart in that they're growing with their audience. Like from the
Yeah.
trailer that the only one that I saw featuring, what is it? Vecna is like the name of the new
Vecna, yes,
spooky,
Daddy
which spooky
Vecna.
name. But I do think that they're like still trying to appeal to that younger audience, but also just like growing with their audience, that have been watching the show since whenever it came out.
Which I always think is a smart thing for shows to do, like grow with the audience.
Yes.
And like, yeah, they're like embracing the fact that yes, they are growing up and like
Yeah.
getting older.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and also giving them time, right? Because we are so used to like traditionally it's a season one year after the other, right? Like we're not we're having years between seasons now, and I kind of really like that. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a risk, though. It's still a risk because, like, you can lose your audience. But I think as far as, like, these kids getting older, it makes sense to, like, let them jump a couple years, you know?
Yep.
And it feels more realistic in that way. That's a creepy one. That's another one with, like, visuals. I remember, what is it? Second season with Will and... Wow, oh my god, I don't know any of the names of these like monsters, but like the big
mind
monster
flayer?
that's like right in front of him and like
Yeah, the
goes through
mind
his
flayer.
nose. Oh my god, that was so
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just starts throwing itself into his nostrils and ears and eyes and
And
mouth.
you think
It's
of a
like, oh
kid
my-
watching that, and that would be like,
Yes.
I would be terrified and also bring it up, 20 years later in an episode like this. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always think that's like I would have enjoyed that show as a kid, but like it would have still like really scared me.
Absolutely, especially because like at the end of season 1, he like gets out, he's in the clear, then he throws up that slug at the end,
And it's
he's, like,
not,
back in the-
yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, that like perceived versus like actuality of like safety, like oriented. It's
yeah.
so unnerving.
It's definitely, I think, the safety thing for childhood horror is like if your safety is, I mean, that's any horror, obviously, but
Yeah.
I think children is like a specific kind of brand of that because, you know, you're so sheltered for the most part as a child. And then like you're experiencing these things for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's,
I do feel like there's something to be said for like the compassion you feel for kids in a horror over like
Yeah.
adults, right? Because
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
I love It Part 1, but I think It Part 2 is fucking so boring.
I agree.
Right. And like
Yeah.
it's weird because it's the same people that did both parts. But it just is. And I think the kids almost sell the fear better. Not because clearly got like legit actors playing all the adult characters, but like you just feel more for these kids. And it's like this sweet kid just wants to go to the library and chill out and not be bullied. And yet
Yeah.
here he is. Like I just like kept wanting these kids to have like a nice day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They just made a friend group. They just want to hang out a little bit, right?
I know.
That's all.
I know, they
literally-
just want to kiki.
Well,
That's
okay,
right.
okay. If I can just get on this little soapbox for a quick second, I would just finish my Stranger
no.
Things rewatch, so I'm hot off the press with this. But it's
Uh-oh.
just so sad when you watch Will, like when he in like season 3, when he finally like kind of puts everything behind him with getting lost upside down and the mind flayer possession. He finally puts all of it away, and then his all 3 of his best friends have girlfriends, and all he wants to do is play Dungeons and Dragons. And when I first watched it, I was like, oh, that sucks, but it's part of growing up. But I'm watching it again, I'm like, no, like he lost on 2 years of his friendship. He lost 2 years of his childhood. Like he just wants to be able to like get that back.
And he's
he
gay.
can't. And he's gay. It's so
And he
sad.
deserves it. He just
He
deserves
deserves
the moment.
he deserves
right?
a cute little 80s boyfriend. He
When
really
that
does.
was-
Y'all,
I-
he's coming out in season 4, I guarantee.
I hope
Yeah.
so, because I felt like it wasn't even like us re-putting something queer. Because doesn't one of their friends be like, it's not our fault you don't want a girlfriend? It's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it
You
was
just
in the
said-
third
You
season.
basically just said the F word to him. Like,
No, and
Yeah.
they allude
And he
to it.
would, whatever that kid's name is, he would.
Yeah, Mike.
He
Mike
would.
is not the nicest. We agree.
No.
But no, they allude to his queerness in each season. In season 1, it's Joyce and Hopper talking about it and the bullies. And then season 2, like it's Mike. I think Mike says it in season 3. But they talk about it in each season. And then this new season, he's doing a science project on Alan Turing. So it's like it's definitely getting there. So I'm
Interesting.
very excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet it'll happen. It'll happen.
oh God, people will be so like all the fucking stupid people will be so like, oh, they made this kid.
I
gay.
don't think for this one. I think those people have not stuck with it anyway. I think those
That's
people
what
have
I'm
probably
hoping.
been the first or second seasons, and then
Mhm.
everybody who's stuck with it is going to be championing something like that.
And we got
For
our
sure.
out and proud lesbian Robin
Yeah.
Buckley. So
I really liked her. I
What was
really
the
liked-
reaction
I
to
love
that?
her.
To that right there? Do you?
I think most people didn't.
Yeah.
I hate to say didn't mind it, but
Yeah.
like it's crazy that I have to say
Well,
that.
that's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
we're looking for nowadays, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Bottom
Like,
of the
please.
barrel.
Thank you. Thanks for the dirt off your shoe. But I think it is a little different just because she was a new character that
Yes,
was
you're
introduced.
right,
I
you're
do
right.
think as a child who like you watch grow up, I do think there might be some people who act
Yeah.
like fools.
that'll be.
I was
Hey,
actually
that's
gonna-
everyone.
I was gonna say that actually with Robin. I think it was easier because it's like, oh well, she doesn't matter as much. She's not like the
Yeah.
character we grew up with. She's just some random new person added into the show, whatever.
And
Um,
she's like an adult, and people like to
Right.
think that like queerness doesn't exist in children, so that it's that whole thing
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, could be while they're waiting for Will to grow up a little bit, right? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Zach, now I'm gonna spin the wheel and it's gonna land on you.
and it's myself. Okay, so mine kind of bounces off of like my biggest fear when I was growing up was like I always felt security when I knew everything was the way it was supposed to be, and if I saw something out of place or something that didn't belong, it got to me. I think that's why true crime scares me so much. I think that's why it's just like going back to The Strangers. That's such a scary movie because there's so much out of place when you're home alone, and it's not supposed to be out of place.
Yeah.
So I chose Welcome to Dead House. This was a 2-part Goosebumps episode back when they were putting those out. And I was going to go between this and The Mask, but I think Welcome to Dead House got me even more because of the visuals. I think the visuals of like random people coming out of your walls while you're sleeping, or, you know, you're barricaded in a living room with a group of, you know, your neighbors that's supposed to be, you know, your friends, and then they turn into grayscale. And like, I think that all of them turning into grayscale really just shook me to the core. And then they would appear with like little, you know, warts on their faces, and like their just whole personality would change. And it looked sickly, and it was like really terrifying in that way. I guess the plot is just, you know, a family moves into a new house, and are they zombies? It's just like zombie, you know, people.
They're like ghouls,
everywhere.
right?
They're ghouls.
Ghouls. Yeah. Ghouls. Yeah.
And that one always stuck with me. So, but I was like obsessed with watching it, and I had it on VHS, and that was the one I wanted to watch all the time, you know. But every time I did, I was scared for days after that.
I did a speed watch of that earlier today, Zachary.
Did you see when he's like coming out of the wall while somebody's sleeping, or like his hand comes through and just like pulls some of the drywall? It's like,
because that
terrifying.
And then the sister seeing the guy in the hat in just the shadow, like that shit would have had me shook as a child.
Yeah, and it's just I think the actors were really good. All the actors playing The Walking Dead, they did such a fantastic job with like facial expressions, and like when everybody's running to the attic and they're coming out of like the floorboards and all that. They're all like twisting their faces to get at this family that they're going to feed on, you know? And it like really is scary. And then they like they turn into smoke, and their like clothes are just left behind, and like all of that just like it's like building off of each other. And it's Goosebumps, so the acting is like really hokey, right? It's really cheesy, but then you have everybody kind of baked into all of these terrifying images, and it's just so effective.
It really is, and it's also just that whole like the idea of like kind of what we talked about with Don't Look Under the Bed. It's like watching someone like lose like their whole sense of self and kind of turn into that, and then also just the amassing of like an army like that is very, very scary. And like watching numbers build like that also kind of reminds me of Halloween Town 2, where it's like
Calabar's Revenge.
Yeah, Calabar's Revenge. Yes. Yeah, definitely. Just like the whole grayscale aspect of it is just like it is a scary aspect of a kid. It's something that's like something so familiar, which is like just a human person, but sort of like you know, perverted to be some dead version of it is a scary thing. It's like, yeah.
And then you, as you know, you're with your family, but your entire family, like your parents can't even help you, right? Like that's a situation where the parents weren't even helping because they didn't even know what was going on. And they're surrounded by other people that they feel like they need to trust, but then those people turn into the same sort of thing. And you get rid of your wreath on the like that gets me every time, you know?
Yeah.
And then caps off with the dog turning gray too, you know? Yeah. And that was scary.
I don't like anything with pets and horror. I'm out. I am always out. It's my least favorite trope. And Goosebumps is included in that. I don't like that.
It's okay.
We watched VHS 2. Have either of you ever seen the VHS series?
I've seen parts of 2.
So like one of them, it's like kids and a dog. So I was like, Zach, I need to tell you to close your eyes at the end here.
No,
and I'll let you know when. So
if I see any animal, I'm in the theater searching, does the dog die, you know? During Crawl, the dog had me anxious the entire movie in Crawl, you know?
I was anxious. I was anxious when we were watching that, even though I knew you wouldn't have had us watch a movie where the dog dies. So I know you wouldn't have wanted to rewatch it. But I was like, this poor dog. And then I was like, well, it'll probably be fine because Zach wouldn't have wanted us to watch this movie. But like with VHS 2, I was like, all right, Zach, close your eyes now, and I will tell you when to open your eyes.
Is it just dogs or is it any animal? Because horses do that
any
for me
animal.
too.
It's literally any animal.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And like
easy.
in the Nope trailer with all the horses, I'm like already nervous.
About
those
it.
I'm
horses
clenching.
better be
I'm literally
okay.
clenching.
Like
the horse in the ring, I have to turn away from that every single time when it jumps over. It's just
my God.
animals have
Ugh.
a sort of vulnerability that we don't even have.
Yes,
because
and
they just
innocence.
carry such innocence. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That,
totally.
like, when people fuck with them in movies, I'm like, why? You know?
And yeah,
Y'all
don't
are,
even
y'all
do
are
it.
unhinged.
Don't
Y'all
do
are
it.
unhinged.
No.
and don't
And
even.
so
feel-
weird.
I know so many. So is it all three of you that feel that way?
Of course.
Yes.
Ugh.
It's like, kill every animal. Kill them. Slaughter them.
Like, I get like upping it for you, but like for me, I'm like, all right, yeah, it's fucking horror. Like, I don't know. Like,
I
I
get what
feel
you're
like,
saying.
but
I
we're
don't know.
like, watching a child die is upsetting because like I feel like children are mostly innocent, but I'm
feel-
like still
I don't
like,
know. I don't.
think
I don't
it-
feel
I
the same
think
for
it's-
children as I do for.
I don't
think
either.
it's-
I genuinely don't either because even I feel like kids have more of a sense of like what is actually happening around them than animals do.
Yeah.
So there's something a little deeper. I'm also, you guys, I had an edible before this. I have to be honest. So I'm also just like, maybe I'm just like saying shit.
No,
right now.
I believe you.
now I'm upset that we're not on the same level because I was like,
I'm
"Yeah,
so
yeah."
sorry.
That's
I'm
what I
We
did.
should we should have put it out in the newsletter. You know, everybody.
The newsletter.
Just everybody get high. No, but it makes
Yeah.
sense because like I think
Next
that's
time.
the same way that I don't like just a normal dog movie is that something always happens and it always looks like the dog doesn't understand why this person is leaving and that hurts
Yes.
Yeah.
them deeply for some reason.
Yes.
And so it tears me apart and I just want to, rip my eyeballs out.
It takes me
Right.
back to Neverending Story, which I won't bring up.
Oh my God. Well, you just did and now everybody's crying.
you just did. What about how do we feel about Conjuring?
Oh, I love The Conjuring.
The dog part though.
What the dog?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what I have to turn away from.
Yeah, I definitely go get water during that.
As long as I know it's coming, I can just turn away or go to the bathroom during something, right? But it's like when
Yeah.
I'm assaulted while I'm in the theater that I always
Yeah,
have a really hard time. I have to like breathe really heavy, and get over it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. And that's why I'm nervous to see Nope.
And said, kill all dogs, do it. And just murder them all.
I'm a dog person. I grew up with the most useless kind of dog in a horror movie. I grew up with a pug. Like, what's he
Oh,
doing? I'd have
yeah.
to run
about-
with him in my arm.
Did y'all watch Snakes on a Plane, right?
Oh,
No.
yeah.
Drama.
I would
Yeah.
never
Drama.
watch it.
You
Nope.
haven't? You
Well,
haven't?
No, I don't
Okay.
want
I
to.
saw it in theaters when it came out.
Mhm.
I don't fucking know why. I don't know why I did that to myself, but
Yeah.
definitely instilled some trauma in me. I mean, just like everything else we're talking about.
I think that one really hit my animal feels. I think that might have
forget.
even what started it. It's a chihuahua,
Well,
right?
them
They like
having-
take it and
Yes.
like throw it at the snake
but
for
was
no
that-
reason. It doesn't do anything for the plot.
I'm so happy I
Was
didn't
that the
watch this
one-
movie.
Wait, am I thinking of the right movie? When they're in the bathroom and they're having sex and that
Yeah.
happens
Yeah,
to
yeah,
them?
that's
okay,
that movie. Yeah.
great. Yep.
And there's a girl that looks like
Yeah.
Alicia Silverstone with the dog. It's her chihuahua.
Um,
I know it's
fun
not
fact,
Alicia Silverstone.
It's
but-
fun fact. It's the woman that played her character in the Clueless TV show, though.
Is it really? That makes a
Oh,
lot of
my
sense.
God.
Because I
That's
remember the entire time I
interesting.
watched it, I was like, that's
Yeah, it's Rachel
Clueless.
Blanchard, and she was also the one in Carrie 2 who gets killed by Carrie smashes her glasses into her eyes.
Yes.
Oh, the rage.
Yes.
Yes, the rage. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that we ended on childhood trauma, the animals.
There you go.
Full circle. But we really thank you guys for coming. Let us know down in the comments or on social media, what was your childhood trauma? What scared you the most as a kid? What left an imprint? And thank you so much. Where can everybody find you, Fear Queers?
Me?
Yes, you.
Okay. You can find us. We post every other week on any platform that you listen to podcasts on. You can also follow us at Fear Queers Pod on Twitter and at LGBTQVHS on Instagram.
I love that name, by the way. I
That's
thought
a-
that
yeah,
was
that's
such a
Thank
creative
you.
one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I'll say is thank you. We were both so excited to be here. So thank you so much for bringing us on and spending time with us. And it was so fun. So thank you.
Yes.
I just found out you have a Star Wars channel,
Oh,
and I'm
yes.
about to binge all of your
Oh,
videos.
no.
Just so you know.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, no.
I really appreciate it. Stick to the more recent ones.
Going straight to the oldest.
Chase, I say that with Slayerfest all the time. I'm like, you can start with season 3. Like,
Yeah, it's okay.
You don't have to backlog it. It's okay.
What about you, Ian? Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Ian X Carlos on all social media platforms, and you can find my other podcast at SlayerFest X98 on all social media platforms, and subscribe to us where you get your podcast. Zachary, where can everyone find you, and where can they find My Bloody Judy?
You can find My Bloody Judy if you just search it, My Bloody Judy. You can find us anywhere now on YouTube, podcasting platforms, and you can find me. I have another podcast with my husband called Coffee and Tequila, because a million podcasts for a million people, right? And that's that, and we will see you next time.
Bye.